if we go through the main trends in crypto in 2017, in 2018, in 2019 now, we will see that probably 2017 was the mostly obvious ICO trend. Then 2018, as the result, comes regulations, then stable coins. Now a lot of among all of those trends, we are talking about digital assets. Why do you think this is one of the key trends? What is the background? What are the key factors for that?
Well, I think to kind of summarize what you just mentioned, right? So 2017 was the ICO hype once the ERC20 token standard was released. So companies started doing ICOs on top of Ethereum. That was the 2017 story, right? And then because of a lot of the scams, different countries started to pay attention to this and putting bans. I live in the US, so SEC got involved. So that was, and then started pretty much ICO died out, right, based on the ERC20 token. So, and then 18, because of the high volatility of cryptocurrencies, now people were looking for something stable where they can move them whatever they have assets to something stable. I mean, so that's when the stable coins started to pop up. In the beginning of 2018, there were like less than 5 stable coins on the market. Towards the end of last year, there were like over 20 stable coins on the market. If you look at the market cap today, and it's called stable coin index, you can go track it. So over 3.7 billion market cap as of end of last year, right?
So how much nowadays?
We can check. I didn't check.
I just recently read that like 550, like they're like some of them are like still are not released, but still
it's probably in the pipeline. So and then 2019 is like the year you're talking about. You see a lot of interest in tokenized assets. That's like that trend, right? You're going from highly volatile assets to like a stable, backed by fiat currency, and then now issuing tokens backed by any asset, right? That's the trend, and we will get into some of the details. Like there's a lot of regulation and things happening, and right. So the trend is this. And I think I'll let Sheraz add something, and then we will get into a few more things.
I totally agree with what you're saying, and I really believe that this year of 2019 is going to be the year of adoption. I mean, we can see a lot of bigger companies now coming out in the space. I mean, Facebook's coin, their global coin, they're going to launch it in a week, 7 days from now. So I'm really excited to see how that's coming along. And so, are there any Americans in the audience today?
Please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so one of the biggest retailers in America, Target,
5.
actually announced that they're going to be using blockchain technology, and they've secretly been working since 2018 with blockchain technology. So I really believe that a lot of bigger companies now are really getting into the space, and by the end of this year, we're going to see all big corporations really integrating this technology, and I'm really excited for that.
May you name... you wanted to add something?
No, just to add, I think, especially recently, the last 6 months, as you pointed out, corporates are getting into stable coins, like you mentioned, Facebook, and then JP Morgan, and also, in fact, I was in China. A Chinese bank is looking at issuing a stable currency, and then, in fact, even a central bank, and there's talk about issuing a central bank, they call it CBDC, central bank digital currency.
Central bank
so
digital currency.
Now the stablecoin trend is moving towards even bigger players, corporates and stuff, taking off, right? It started with startups doing Tether and this, and now it's like towards the end of the last 6 months, you really see now the big companies are taking that wave. Now I think even corporates are going to start using stablecoins to do inter-corporate settlements. Mm-hmm. That's a big trend within like a year. I mean, that's a big. So now we will get into the tokenized assets, right? That's kind of like the topic this year, yeah.
May you name now the major use cases of digital assets?
That's a very, very broad. When you say digital asset, right? I want to clarify something about asset. Let's talk about asset. So when you say asset, and the asset is on the ledger, just numbers, right?
It proves you ownership of physical.
Correct. So
asset.
ownership of an asset on the ledger, that's one part. The other thing is your real asset is actually in the physical world, right? Like, a fiat currency, you put it in a custody, or like a gold or real estate. So now you have a custody, right? You put the asset under custody. So the whole conversation really depends on which asset you're talking about. Are you talking about purely digital asset that's just on the ledger? I mean, just like Bitcoin is just, many coins are like on the ledger itself, and I can easily transfer it. But when there is an asset that you're tokenizing, that's actually a physical asset, things change a lot. Now you need a intermediate party, like, you have a custodian, which is actually a third party, which, blockchain is all about removing intermediate parties. But
still
if you get into a physical world, there is no choice. I have to give you what I have, and you're the trusted party. And then I go issue tokens to the people here. And then they have to trust me, or actually trust you, that, let's say I gave you $1 million worth of real estate, and you're the custody, right? And then I issue $1 million tokens to people here, public. So they have to trust you that you have the asset that I gave you.
Yeah, that is
but
true.
Of course, I mean,
because blockchain cannot verify it.
Exactly. So when you're talking about physical asset, you need a third party. You're the third party in this case. You're holding my asset. And the rest of the things, the blockchain advantage is like, I'm issuing tokens, I can transact, it's a 24/7 global market, anybody can buy from anybody. I mean, I just want to make sure people understand when you're talking about digital asset, the whole conversation will take a different direction if you're talking about something purely digital or something like physical.
That's very true. So the major use cases of digital assets really do stem from the underlying technology of blockchain and benefits that are there. So the benefits of blockchain technology, you have security, okay, you have the privacy, and then you have the trust. So from those three elements, even if you create hybrids, there's so many use cases out there.
That's true, but why I've asked, it's about physical assets, because now they are going into virtual world, they are going on the blockchain.
So we at Smart Valor are essentially tokenizing alternative investments. So imagine a house, for example, or a big hotel worth 20 million. We're fractionalizing that asset and putting it on chain. So having the opportunity to own percentiles of these assets is very, very revolutionary. And I think this is going to be one of the major use cases for digital assets.
Yeah, so I think adding on to the discussion, right? So, I mean, the biggest asset, do you guys know what is the biggest asset in the world? I think most of you know, right?
Life, Earth.
Well, wife is, she spends the asset, right? That's a different story.
We spend time.
Biggest asset actually is, I mean, most of you know, it's real estate, right? The global real estate asset is like over $250 trillion in real estate asset. I think majority of it is like single family and then commercial. The biggest asset is also actually, if you look, it's highly illiquid. I mean, you can't really, trade it easily, right? I mean, if I own a house today, and all of a sudden I need, cash right now. I mean, I don't want to sell the whole house. No. I just want some part of it, right? I mean, there are loans and stuff like that, but it takes a long time processing. But tokenizing real estate is like a big topic right now, right? So that's an example. I mean, we can dive into it, and because the thing is, when you tokenize a real estate asset, in my startup, you're tokenizing loans. I can just tokenize part of it, right? And then just sell it to anybody in the world. It's cross-border. It's a cross-border. It's not just like U.S. It could be somebody from France or Spain or Russia. They can actually buy my tokens. But now there's always a gap between what blockchain can do. That's like a dream, and then where we are today. There's actually a gap, right? I mean, this is where the regulation, all of these things come in. But there's a gap. But what blockchain can do is it can create like a global 24/7 crypto, just like Bitcoin. There's no open close time, right? Like New York Stock Exchange. It's like people are trading like 24/7. same thing, right? There will be a day pretty soon, like where tokenized assets like real estate, you can actually buy and sell to anybody in the world. I mean, it's going to be slow. Yeah.
I just recently read one notion that everything in the world at some point subsequently will be tokenized. Do you agree with that?
I 100% agree. I mean, why wouldn't we have all our assets manageable directly from our phone and directly with us? It totally makes sense. If we take gold, for example, I mean, just investing in gold and having that, you have to put it, let's say you buy some gold. Firstly, where do you buy it? Then you have to store it somewhere. You're going to store it under your bed? Well, it's probably not the safest place, right? You have to find a vault. Then you have to actually maintain the vault properly, pay somebody to keep it in the vault. If you have digital gold, it's very easy to access, very easy to buy, sell, and I think really it's going to be revolutionary. Everything will be on there.
How do you think in the future will we have all the time prove our ownership on the blockchain of everything we have? Like this will be like not voluntarily, but it's like would be like a demand to have everything.
I'm not sure about everything. I mean, I doubt my shoes will be on the blockchain, for example. But
I mean about big stuff.
But bigger assets, I definitely believe so. Yes.
Yeah, I think adding on to your point, right? I mean, we spend most of our time on smartphones, right? I mean, computer a little bit, but we are, the moment we wake up, we check our phone. When we go to bed, we check phone. Everything is on the phone. So, when in these investments, the tokenized assets and all of these things, it becomes easier for you to access from your phone. I mean, there are exchanges, they have apps, but still, security is a problem. I mean, Brad was talking about it, right? It's, most of us, even engineer lost his money because using the same email address I do the same, but in fact, but the thing is, well, I'm going to change it for the record. So, you have to make it user-friendly. It's got to be like something that anyone from any corner of the world with a smartphone can buy, like an asset from any corner of the world, right? That's like the theory of what blockchain is. But then there are, first, user-friendliness is important for adoption, right? And then the number two is security is the biggest issue right now. And Brad was talking about a way you can avoid that, but I think there's a trend, like Samsung released phone version, right, like a few months ago, where the wallet is a hardware wallet at the phone level, right? I mean, that's like the trend, right? Now phone is actually, the security is at the hardware level. I mean, of course, if you lose a phone, it's a different story. You may have to go to Samsung to help you get a new phone. But I'm saying this is kind of the trend that will help with mass adoption. I mean, going to the hardware level to take care of the security, user-friendliness through apps. And then there's one more problem, right? We will talk later. There are many security token standards out there. I mean, the interoperability would be a problem. We'll probably get into it later, right? So that's another issue, yeah.
Yeah, which we'll discuss, definitely. But for the first, we may say that digital asset management actually is one of the most promising applications of blockchain that blockchain will benefit from.
Yeah, I definitely believe that it's something that is going to increase, definitely, in terms of the management. If you look at how things are done in the traditional sense now, everyone's digital assets are managed through brokers and online applications. I think that now we will have bigger exchanges come out, like Binance, that are more regulated, where you can really use these digital assets and transfer them. For example, like security token exchanges that will be coming up in the most recent future.
Okay.
Yeah. So to this question, right? Yes, digital assets are moving into blockchain. So again, there's two areas here. One is business to consumer, right? Like you're building, you're tokenizing assets for consumer. Like I'm tokenizing something like gold or real estate, so the consumers can actually buy those tokens, right? That's one area. The other area is businesses to businesses. For banks setting up like a ledger to actually do interbank settlements, right? I mean, that's also digital asset. So actually, the irony right now is like all the companies who are building, including my company, BitCasas, who are building like these B2C solutions are kind of like facing the regulation struggle right now, right? I mean, different countries have different regulations, and you have to have licensing and all of that. Interestingly, the B2B is moving a lot faster. I mean, a lot of enterprises are actually using blockchain, DLT, to do the transactions. Like I was in China last 6 months ago. I saw like a live demo of, I don't know how many of you know VBank. VBank is actually related to like WeChat, like some parent company, right? So VBank actually tied up 2 other companies on a ledger, and a consumer can actually, request loan on WeChat, and within 7 seconds, if it's approved or not. All the transactions happen on ledger, and 3 banks are actually transacting among themselves. Like WeBank would put % of the loan, the other 2 banks would put 40%. All these things are happening on ledger, and it's been live for a year now. So you can see things are moving. I mean, interestingly, the adoption in the B2B space is moving a lot faster than that the startups kind of like getting stuck with trying to figure out the regulation space, right?
What do you think? What should be done so B2C would kind of speed up?
Yeah, I think it's just going to take a little bit of time, Rome wasn't built in a day, and this market won't be either. I think mass adoption is coming, as we spoke before, and consumers are finding out about it on a daily basis. I mean, if you look at the Google search track, we're seeing searches for cryptocurrency, blockchain, Bitcoin that are reaching peaks, even peaks that they didn't attain in the bull run. So I really believe that more people are finding out about the underlying technology, not just about the money-making schemes, but also about how this technology is going to revolutionize the world.
So I live in San Francisco in a Bay Area, right? So I remember like, you guys know Uber went IPO, and I remember when Uber started, right? I remember those days. I mean, it was like mainly I think it was like only in San Francisco. they were only like the ride sharing. They were testing only in San Francisco, and then they expanded to like next state, and then it just kept. Now it's like they went IPO, right? Same thing. I think it's going to be. We're at this very early stage, right? I mean, my own startup, BitCasas, we're just trying to figure out, just deploy it in an area where we can at least deploy it today, like figure out like at least maybe one country, right? And then next country, and then as we know, like several countries like Europe is working on regulation. Like the hope is like as we start scaling, one by one, all these countries will have a regulation in place. We will go get the license, and we go global, right? So we're starting small, but right now, the biggest thing that's kind of pushing us back, which is good and bad. I mean, is the regulation not clear in many jurisdictions, right? So
yeah, but it's another topic. Yesterday it was discussed partially, but I think it's more topics to discuss all over the countries, all over the world. Now I would like to ask you more about Internet of Value, because actually now permissionless public blockchain, they actually offer the most potential for creating the omnipresent infrastructure of the Internet of Value. Do you agree with that or not? And why?
I'm going to go back to the case I told you, right? Are you developing a B2C?
Yeah.
Like, am I tokenizing it so folks here can actually buy my tokens? Which actually I would use a public blockchain, permissionless public blockchain for that. Or if you're developing a business-to-business solution, like many businesses are developing blockchain solutions for, finance and trading. They use private blockchains.
Yeah, that's true.
So they both are going to be there. It depends on which. I mean, it's pretty much it boils down to two. Like startups, companies trying to build business models on public blockchains, and then you got all these businesses like enterprises trying to build their solutions on private blockchains, like Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, Hyperledger, Corda. They're all building enterprise scale and industry grade solutions on private blockchains. So it depends on which track you're on. I mean, are you on the startup side or enterprise side?
No, okay. If we are talking now with startup, of course, we're talking about startup.
Okay. So you want to add?
I mean, Ramesh, you hit the nail on the head there. So I have nothing to add to that point.
But talking...
Yeah, sure. I think your question was the interoperability, correct?
Yeah. We will proceed with that. Yeah. That's actually the one of the most obviously now kind of questions what bothers a lot if we're talking about internet of value, because we have discussed it earlier. Most of assets now are being digitized, but at the same time, transfer of value is still kind of in the past century. A lot of my acquaintances who are now working on making this ecosystem of blockchain, they claim that the transfer of value and interoperability of different blockchains is still kind of like we live in the past century. Do you agree with it or not?
So I think we're developing. I don't think all blockchains need to be interoperable. For example, if you
if you need to transfer value from one to another, still there is lots of problems which are coming up. Or don't we need to solve that? How do you think?
Yeah. So are you done? So the thing is. We have two challenges right now.
Yeah.
One is the legal regulation challenges, which we mentioned, and we had a panel yesterday and all of that. That's one. That's the legal challenges that you're facing in this field right now for a startup. The other challenge is the technical challenge, in the sense, interoperability. I'll tell you right now, like, my startup, we are looking at issuing a security token on, for example, it's an Ethereum blockchain, right?
Ethereum.
What's happening today is, even on the Ethereum same blockchain, there's several security token issuance platforms. Remember, to issue a security token, the government is asking to do AML KYC check. They want to know who's holding the token. They want to know who you're issuing the token to. So AML KYC check must be done. So because of that, just because there's a requirement that you have to do an AML KYC check, now you have several token issuance platforms, like, I can name a few, I'm not promoting them, is Polymath, Securitized, Arbiter, all of this. So the thing is, they all have their own protocols. They're modifying like ERC20, like ERC 1400 and all this. Now, it's like if I use one platform A, I'm kind of like using their protocol to issue my token. If I'm using platform B, I'm issuing my security token using their protocol. And it's like, they're all Ethereum blockchain underneath, but then you got like another level of complexity, layer 2 protocol, like, a vendor-specific protocol now. That's actually a technical challenge. I mean, I mean, do you want to know what the solution should be? The solution should be like all of these guys use one standard, right? Like, like Wi-Fi is the same everywhere you go. But that's kind of what I'm working on, trying to bring all these parties together to see if we can create like a single standard that can actually solve this interoperability problem. Because end of the day, you want your token to be able, you want the token to be able to trade in many exchanges, not just tied to one platform.
Yeah.
100%. And I think Smart Valor, as being one of the leading security token exchanges, we've been naturally working quite closely with other security token exchanges that are coming up in other jurisdictions, like in America and Asia, to create one standard. For example, Polymath has their own standard, and many others. And I think this is really a sector where we have to set our differences aside. I don't see many of the security token exchanges as competitors. We're collaborators. We're collaborating together. And if we're able to create one standard altogether, it will benefit not only the industry, but all of us combined.
Okay, so still coming back to the issue of interoperability of different blockchains, because to be honest, I've heard lots of speeches about that still they are trying to build, for example, another protocol on layer second solution. Still, if we're talking about different blockchains, but what to do if we're talking? There is a problem with interoperability of different blockchains, but if we're talking about interoperability of blockchains with the traditional financial world, what to do then? It's even more complicated.
Yes, that's actually really complicated if you're talking about, so you're talking about like traditional
Transfer
capital
from.
markets, like trying to bridge the crypto and the traditional. I mean, the only way that's going to happen is they start adopting blockchain, right? I mean, like, I know like a lot of these exchanges have projects, right? NASDAQ and all these companies. So that like, even Swiss exchange, like, I mean, when they start adopting blockchain, that's probably when, it's going to help a little bit. But
Bravo stage 2, 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 Bravo stage 2.
Obviously, we have another panelist here. He's not present here, but still, coming back to your answer. Sorry.
Yes. So all these bigger exchanges in the traditional market, they are working on blockchain products, and once they release them, I think then we can really combine the traditional markets with these new and up and coming markets, and then interoperability will be a possibility.
One of the actually projects which was trying to solve this problem is Interledger. I know another project which is in Ukraine that they are working on this as well, like to make an ecosystem for blockchains. Is there, as you mentioned, there should be like some international one solution which has to be made. Is there some possible ways to do you know probably about such projects in some other countries which are trying now to solve this problem, that the Internet of Value still is better a concept, not put 100% into practice?
Well, I heard of many projects that are trying to work on interoperability.
But is there some successful cases?
They're all still in progress. So when you say success, it's like, even when they say interoperability, it really depends on what level you're talking about too. Like, you're talking about blockchain to blockchain, or you're talking
layer
about
2.
Layer 2 interoperability. Like, it's now you're talking about just transferring like one token to another token, right? So that part I know works in progress. I'm not sure if there's anything like live right now. Yeah, I'm not aware of it. Yeah.
But in my opinion, if we were to have one overarching company helping with the interoperability of all blockchains, I think that would create a monopoly in the market, and that's not necessarily...
It would be centralized?
It would be centralized, and I don't think that's where the technology is headed today.
Okay, the only thing which I'm trying, for example, to explain me, if you have a smart valor token, then, sorry, on which blockchain is that? Ethereum. We have, I don't know, let's say Monero. How it's better to transfer these values via blockchain?
Well, you can take your Valor token, trade it into Bitcoin, and then from Bitcoin to Monero, right?
Yeah, so still, you cannot switch like from one to one.
Unless there's a base pairing, no, but... they both have different characteristics, and if we were to have interoperability between all different currencies, I think it would be tough liquidity-wise.
Okay.
Right now, it's still through an exchange. Basically, that's pretty much what it is. There's no direct like blockchain to blockchain live as of now.
I know. So exchanges are the only solution for now.
Well, in the traditional markets, they are, right? I mean, for higher volumes, you have OTC, over-the-counter trading. But here we have bigger brokers, NASDAQ, Deutsche Börse. They're the ones where you trade your stocks at the moment. So I feel like bigger exchanges will be the solution. Yes.
Like BNB token.
Binance, yes. Unfortunately, Binance isn't regulated, so I do see some issues further down the line for them. But we at Smart Valor, we're creating a very regulated platform. We work very closely with the Swiss and Liechtenstein government, and I think that's where institutional investors, and even retail investors will want to go in the future, somewhere where their money isn't going to be just shut down from one day to the next, and it is secure, not only with blockchain technology, but also by the government.